This local sports report is brought to you by Peter Izzio from Izzio Financial Solutions, helping you ensure financial stability for your family or business. Call Peter today for expert advice from an experienced advisor. Call now to book an appointment at 519-576-5410.
Adjusting to university life as a student athlete. That's the focus of today's interview with Ahmed Fouad, who just completed his first year of football and academics at the University of Waterloo. Let's start with football, first of all. Ahmed, just tell me what that buzz and energy was like around the team this year. Obviously, getting into the playoffs was a huge step, then winning a playoff game. What was it like being around the Warriors?
Oh man, it was exciting. From day one of training camp, there's a different buzz around the team, and the expectations have been set high around the program ever since our current third years. Like that recruiting class came in, and that was a big class for us. And so ever since those guys set foot on campus, I think it's 3 straight 4-4 seasons, and like you said, with the playoff appearance this year and the playoff game win this year. It's just a really talented roster, a really competitive roster, and really guys that have full confidence in themselves and each other that we can push for an OUA championship. And so that culture has been something really, really special to be a part of.
You get into the OUA semifinals, and what a battle that was against the Western Mustangs, coming up just a little bit short, but great experience and great things to learn from for all of the players. You're a quarterback. Obviously, Trey Ford is the number one guy. He's going into his fourth year this coming season, and he's so dynamic, right? He can run, he can pass, he's elusive, he's all of those things. As a young quarterback yourself, what have you learned from Trey in the short time that you guys have been on the same team?
Well, hey man, Trey's a great guy, and he's been such a good mentor for me. I know like we'd have our QB meetings, and he'd always help me out with different reads, progressions, things to look for. And whenever we're out on the field, after every rep, I'm like, hey, like, what'd you see? Why'd you do this kind of thing? And he just walks me through it. And he's very down to earth, which is, I mean, he's a OUA MVP, an All-Canadian, future CFL pick, but he's still one of the guys, you know? And just watching him play has been really exciting. I mean, I watched him before I got to Waterloo, but being there in person as he spins out of like 70 tackles and runs for 45 yards, or man, like I've got one play stuck in my head and I'll never forget it because it was just insane. We were in training camp. I want to say it was like the 4th or 5th day of training camp, and he's just casually rolling to his right and on a line, 50-yard jump ball to Barnaba down the field. And I'm just like, that's like he's insane.
He's elite, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
And like you mentioned there, he will be drafted into the CFL when his time comes. A number of guys this year, though, and boy, what great players they were. Tyler Ternowski, Dion Pellerin, Curtis Gray, who's a local guy who played for the Resurrection Phoenix a number of years ago, all going in the draft. How pleased are you? And what's it like just to see your teammates put in that hard work and get rewarded by being picked?
I mean, it's awesome, right? Like as a teammate, you're always going to support your fellow black and gold Warriors, right? And I mean, being able to watch those guys play in person, it's a unique experience, right? You really don't understand how special these guys are as athletes and as people until you're there in the room on the field with them. And I know I've thrown a handful of passes to Dion, to Tyler, and those guys, they're route running, and after the catch, Dion with the ball in his hands, Tyler as well. They're just truly special. And I mean, Curtis is a freak athlete. Like he used to be an elite swimmer. He picked up football pretty late actually, but he's taken off. And the fact that he's a local guy, just kind of he's a role model for everyone in the community, really, as to what you can accomplish if you work hard.
We started at the beginning talking about the adjustment. We'll get into the academic side here in a minute. Let's talk about the football adjustment, though. You had a great career at Sir John A. Macdonald, and you guys played in the WICSA semifinals a number of years, and that's, you know, part and parcel Josh Alexander, who's the head coach at SJAM, and the role model that he is helping young guys. But what would you say the biggest difference is between playing, whether it be WICSA football, D8, D10, and moving to the university level? Because I think your input can be really valuable to any high school football player that watches this.
I mean, when I think about the differences, I think about two like big differences. One is the speed of the game, right? I mean, the number of routes that I threw too late or behind receivers this year it's crazy. It's just the speed is entirely different. And the second thing is the intensity, right? Like high school, it's not a knock on high school football, but it pales in comparison to the standard of commitment and intensity of a university level practice, right? Like high schools, I mean, obviously it depends on your high school, right? I was fortunate to go to a high school with a great program. And so we would have our meetings, we would have our 2.5 hour practices, but just the value of time at a university practice too is it's scripted down to the minute.
Right.
And so you learn to make every rep count, especially with bigger roster sizes too, right? There's less reps to go around. And so that's those have been two big learning points for me.
How should a high school student prepare? Right? Because a lot of them, and there's a lot of talented kids in this region, and you've seen them, and I've seen them over a lot of years. How would you say they prepare to try and get ready? Is there things that you can do in high school or at that level to better prepare yourself? Because like I said, all of these kids, or a lot of these kids, would love the opportunity to play university football.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of things you can do to get yourself out there and to expose yourself to coaches. Obviously, number one, playing more football, right? Summer football. Kids here are lucky that there's two really solid programs here with Cambridge Lions and Twin City Predators, or the Waterloo Region Predators, sorry. And a lot of the people coaching, especially those senior varsity teams, are the university current or former players, right? And so that's one thing I would say. Camps are another good thing. I know Waterloo, Coach Brendan Conway does an excellent job with our camps. I know Laurier runs their camps as well. That's another great way to get exposure. Contacting coaches, I know it can be intimidating, but always feel free to email. Just say hello, introduce yourself, show your passion. But also, too, you got to remember there's more to football than the actual physical side of things. You got to get into the school too, right? So you got to make sure you're on top of your grades as well. But I mean, also having a mentor, right? Having someone that's been through the process. And I was lucky enough when I was going through my recruiting process, I was able to come to Waterloo on a visit in January, and I went through an indie period with Trey, with AJ Stewart, and with Will Finch, actually. He was there as well, and just kind of being able to sit there and pick their brains and talk to those guys, it helped me a lot. So
academics is something you said, right there, and I can't stress the value and the importance, because you're absolutely right. It's a combination of things, good athleticism and academics and all of that. When we talk about balance, and I think that's something that's a really important message, Ahmed, when you look at, you're playing football, you've got a social life, obviously you're a full-time student, classes are busy, you want to see your family and friends. How did you find it to manage all of that and try to just, stay focused on each individual thing? Or what were some of your methods to make sure that you were successful that way?
Honestly, it was hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like I mean, to be fair, no, I really doubt anyone's gonna kind of have the same experience I had, because keep in mind, right, in addition to football, I was playing varsity squash, and I took honors biomedical science. So at Waterloo, my first term was 3.25 credits versus the average of 2.5. So I would say for me, it would be a little bit more difficult than the average person, but I still found ways to obviously have a social life, do well in school, and obviously give my full commitment to my respective sports. And I think the biggest thing is you got to realize once you start to get overwhelmed, you've got to kind of take a step back, right? Because let's be honest, university can be overwhelming, right? And if you don't approach that with the right mindset, it's gonna get to you, right? And so I was lucky enough that the things that I was keeping myself busy with, I genuinely enjoyed, right? And that's a big part of it. I enjoyed my program. I loved my sports. I loved my teammates. Um, and really, I didn't think of them as commitments. I thought of them as passions, right? And so football would be a break from squash and school. School would be a break from sports and like that, right? That was my thought process.
Right.
And really, nobody's gonna be on you, right? Like it's all you. You're an independent person now. There's no attendance. There's no homework checks. There's no calls to your parents, right? So if you take that initiative and you approach things with the right mentality, there's enough time in the day to make it all work.
What tips and tricks would you give a high school student? Because time management is what I heard from you in that answer. And that's the most critical thing in terms of trying to make sure that you allot enough time to everything and focus on one thing at a time. It sounds a bit cliche, right? Like it sounds like a bit of a sports vernacular, but it's so true in this case, right? Tips and tricks for high school students. What would you say, Emma?
Honestly, one thing that worked really well for me was I had a planner. With Waterloo Football, we've got Marshall Bingman as our academic consultant advisor, and so we would meet with him weekly. And one of the biggest things he stressed was getting this planner, right? And so I would have a weekly planner where one of the first things he made us do was we wrote out all of our assignments, midterms, and things like that worth more than 10%, and that helped me because I could think long term and I could say, okay, this week is going to be really, really heavy. So the week before that's pretty light, I'm going to get started with my study. So the planner was one thing. Obviously, don't be shy to get help if you need it, whether that's academic, meeting with an academic advisor at your respective institution, meeting with a mental health officer. That's not something to be ashamed of, right? I view that as a sign of strength, right? And like I said, right, university is overwhelming, and so if you let it, it'll take a toll on you mentally. But obviously, taking advantage of the resources at your disposal is a great way to deal with that. And honestly, just remembering why you're there, I found was a big thing, right? Like people view university, like I'll hear people say, "Oh, like I hate this class," or "I don't want to write this midterm." I'm like, listen, that's a program that you paid money to enroll in at a school that you paid money to enroll in, right? So remembering why, like, and I mean, I like everyone else, I had my ups and downs, right? Like I struggled, I thrived at times. And like I said, you just got to remember that you're there because you chose to be there and because you were selected to be there, right? You got in. And so, um, yeah, that'd be my biggest advice.
You recently launched something called Summer School U. It's on Instagram. Tell us a little bit about the goals and the focus of the program.
Yeah. So when the whole coronavirus pandemic started, well, I shouldn't say started, but maybe like back in mid to late March, I sat down and I was looking at a spring term where I wasn't taking any classes. So I thought to myself, hey, like, I really want to do something good for the community at this point in time because it's needed and there's no better time than now to make a difference. And so my original idea actually was to make a game and release it on in the Apple Store, and I was gonna like make it like $1.99, and then I was just gonna donate all the proceeds. And then as I looked into it more and more, I started realizing, well, first, I don't have the most amazing of computer science backgrounds, and this would take a really long time. So I kind of put that idea aside. And I mean, I've been working as a tutor for a while. Like I've tutored for over 600 hours now with over 70 students. And I was actually I was talking to a teacher at my high school, and they were saying like people are anxious, and even the people I was tutoring, like they were stressed about university because a lot of them are grade 12. And so I figured this would be a great thing to do in starting Summer School U. And basically what it's all about is I'm running a handful of courses to expose people to first year university material, and it's all online on Zoom, and it's structured like a university course and program. And the thought process behind it is A, expose people to the material so they do better in the class. B, get comfortable with online education, because unfortunately that looks like the method of delivery for the next term at least.
Mm-hmm.
And C, it gives you other people to feel, and like it's a community atmosphere, right? When you're taking these courses with 50, 60, 100 other students, and it's good for me too, just to be able to surround yourself with people, especially at these times. Yeah, that's really the outlook for it.
There's a charitable component as well, with part of the proceeds going to the food bank of Waterloo region. You mentioned COVID-19, obviously, at the beginning there, and the impact that you're trying to have, you know, both with high school students and getting them ready, preparing them for first year university courses. But I think it's outstanding as well that you're thinking about, you know, the community here in Waterloo region, and giving back and recognizing that these are tough times and every little bit's going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that ties back to why I started this whole thing in the first place, is that I wanted to make a difference, right? And so, like you said, that difference is going to be twofold, hopefully. One, helping high school graduates succeed at the next level of their life, academically, socially, and what have you, but also giving back to the community financially, right? By donating 25% of the proceeds from Summer School U to the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. Depending on how many people register, my goal is over $2,500 in donations, which is hundreds of meals. And that's really what I take the most pride in, is making that impact, and taking steps to support my community in this difficult time.
Where can people find out more information about Summer School U?
That's a great question. Right now, I'm operating strictly on Instagram at summer.school.u on Instagram. Uh, I've been pretty swamped there. Like, that account has actually taken off in the past couple of days. Like, I'm looking at the numbers here. In the last one day alone, over 100 new followers. Top post with over 1,200 views. Over 11,000 profile visits in the last week and a half. So I've been really busy with that. I'm hoping to expand, maybe get a website going, get a Facebook page going, and yeah, it's taken off a lot quicker than I thought it would. And I'm sure you could relate to this with starting 519.
For sure.
The first couple days, you're just kind of treading water, and you're kind of getting your feet wet. You're seeing where things can go, and then it hits a point where it just starts taking off.
And I don't know when the turning point was for 519 either. You know, you're right. You're trying to build something. You're trying to have a positive impact in the community, and that's the mission and the goal of 519. You know, and that's never wavered from the beginning. You know, be a positive promotional platform. But you're right. You know, I woke up one day, we had like 10,000 followers on Instagram. I thought, okay, I think we're doing something. We're doing something pretty good.
And I mean, that's the biggest challenge for me right now, is just like I founded this program like 10 days ago, and obviously the goal for the first 2 days is content, right? Get the mission out there, get the courses out there, tell people what it's all about. But B was marketing, right? You got to get an interest base going. And now that things are starting to take off, it's really about kind of scaling that progress to a point where I can still fulfill my main commitment, which is doing this program, or running this program at a really high level, right? And so I'm looking into hiring, because that's just how big it's gotten, and that would be another benefit of doing it for me too, is finding jobs for university students as well. And the bigger this thing gets, the bigger its impact, and the better off it is really for everyone involved.
Honestly, great perspectives. Really appreciate you taking the time. And I think there's a lot of valuable information in here, you know, for high school students, not only from an academic perspective, but from a football perspective too. And, you know, ways to prepare yourself for that next level, because like you said at the beginning, it is a pretty big adjustment. Appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you this fall.
Absolutely, Darren. Thank you so much for having me.
For more highlights, visit our website, 519sportsonline.ca. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.